Hello folks, welcome to another edition of Tweeter's Tech, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. This is my new upgrade. I've gone with free UK. I managed to pre-order this and get this a few days before its actual scheduled date, which was today, March the 11th I believe. So I've had a few days to play around with the phone. You may have seen in previous videos I've used the Note device quite often, Note 1, 2, 3, 4, the Edge, and I've shied away from Galaxy phones in the past because of the screen size, the battery size, and I always found the Note devices being just a bit more powerful. They were more of a powerhouse of a phone. The Note 5 has been a bit of a disappointment this year. It's supposed to be an amazing phone, but it's not available in the UK. So, and even if it was, the SD card slot is not available on the phone. So, I probably would have shied away from it, which is a shame. But you know, all good things come to an end. Maybe they'll redeem themselves with a Note 6. Who knows? But they have taken on criticism about the previous S6 phones and the S6 phone Edge in regards to bringing the SD card slot back without compromising style or premium materials. So when we look at the phone itself, it comes with a 5.5-inch screen with 32 gig of internal storage and Android Marshmallow. The battery, like I said, is 3600 mAh. The Snapdragon 820 processor and Exynos 8890. I don't know what that means, but those are the stats. A 4 gig of RAM. Obviously the SD card slot, a welcome addition that can support up to 200 GB of storage. The dual curve display, which we'll show in a minute, actually comes with version 4 of Gorilla Glass, bit of a tongue twister there, and apparently you don't need a screen protector. Don't quote me on that, but I've been told they are quite tough, so you don't really need to bother. I've never really bothered in the past, so it's up to you whether you want to. It's not going to hurt if you do, I suppose. Apparently this phone is waterproof and dustproof, and you can hold it 3 foot deep under water for about 30 minutes, but I'm not going to test that today. I will just take Samsung's word for it. There are a few different changes in regards to the camera. We're used to a 16 megapixel in previous phones, but this one's now gone down to a 12 megapixel. It's not the worst thing ever. They've done it so that you can have larger pixels on the shots, which allow better shots in a low light situation. If you're in a restaurant or if you're in a club or a bar, those pictures will now be more brighter. And I've not had the chance to test it out yet, but based on other reviews it looks as though it is a welcome addition. The only thing you do sacrifice by having a lower megapixel camera is the resolution on long distance and scenery shots. It's still good, but not quite as good. But that's something I'm willing to trade in. So before we look at the actual phone itself, the packaging comes with a few bits and bobs. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, this thing, it's basically an OTG adapter. This allows you to hook it up to your Galaxy device like so, and you can hook up maybe a USB based accessory like a mouse or a controller to play emulators, but it also allows you to have access to your hard drive like I have, where if I want media stored, I can use the Samsung to manage my files on my external hard drive, and you can also use this to transfer data from your existing Galaxy device or Samsung device to your new and existing one. So it's quite a welcome addition to have. I've not had that in my previous phones before. Headphones are pretty much standard as always. They're a little bit different. I think they've just got these different heads on there, so I've always been a bit critical of their headphones because they just look like iPhone headphones. You know, at least change the colour or something, but yeah, they're fine. I tend to use a third-party headphones normally, but in this instance, the only thing that's different from the last device I had, I think you've had these in the S6 device, you've got this pin which basically punches in here. I won't take it out now. And that drawer has access to my SD card slot and my SIM. So the good thing is it doesn't compromise the build quality, but still has the option for SD card slot, which is something they should have done ages ago. Sony have done it for a long time, and you have to wonder why Samsung took this long to do it. But it's done now, it's resolved. Happy days. So we can see here it's got quite a shiny, glossy feel here. It does attract fingerprints very easily, and I spend my time cleaning it quite a lot, so I would recommend a case. It is a slippery little bugger. The home button, still got that nice feel that we all like. Nice and relevant. You know, the quality is really nice. There's the volume rocker. Like I said, that's the drawer with the SD card slot and the SIM. Over here is the power button. And down here we've got the speakers, the micro USB port, and the headphone jack, which is at the bottom. And I do prefer having it at the bottom. It's not everyone's preference, but for me personally I do like it. You can see here you've got the curved screen on both sides, and we'll show the features in a minute. But the one good thing, it's not as noticeable, but it's got a slight curve, like the Note 5. If I show it like this, you might see there's a slight curve as well. And that just seems a bit more hugging on the phone. Some people argue it might be a bit too slippery, but I quite like it. But I've got some cases, and I'll show you about that in a minute. Now, I'm not going to go through every different feature. This video is going to be seen by a lot of current Samsung users, so they're going to be familiar. There's not much different. Obviously, it's the lighter version of Android. It's the latest version of Marshmallow. Things are pretty similar, with just a few different changes. Always on display, which is what I've got on at the moment. You've got the torch here. I don't know if that was on the S6 phone, but that's something I didn't have on the Note, so that's quite a nice addition. It's always on display. I've got this on at the moment. When I'm not using the phone, it will always have a certain amount of information, and you can customize what you want on there, how you want the clock, a display clock or an analog clock, the weather, notifications, etc. I don't use it often, but I've kept it on for the benefit of the video so you can see what it looks like. But the main feature about the phone itself is obviously going to be the Edge display. So you can see this thing here. I'll swipe it along. So I've had a few trays set up here. I've added my media apps here we can have access to quite easily. Let's have a look. This is basically shortcuts to tasks that you want to do. If I want to set an alarm, if I want to look at the world clock, etc. And you can choose what tasks you want. The next one I've got along is my urgent contacts. Let's have a look at that actually. Click on that, that's my sister. And it'll bring up information I can call, text or email her. I've also got my internet bookmarks. What I'm using my data, it's quite a handy one. I had this on my Note Edge and it was quite handy to use. I've had to upgrade, so I haven't got unlimited data like I'm used to. It's one of the things I had to do to get a high-end phone nowadays. So Twitter trends, that's another thing that's quite handy to have. And the weather app. So there's a few different things you can have on there. I haven't used it as much as I thought I would, but it's nice to have, so that it allows the home screens to just have the more attractive widgets. As you can see, I don't really have many shortcuts here, but what I've done on the app drawer, it's typically a horizontal app drawer, but I've gone a bit anal and put everything in folders. So I've got all the stuff, my media, my tools, my Samsung stuff, my shopping stuff, and all my social apps. I've put them all into one folder, and it's just easier to access for me. But that's just a preference thing, really. One of the things I don't really like, even though the TouchWiz version is a lot better, is I've turned off the flipboard thing. I think it's called, let's see, what is it called now? Okay, I found it. Yeah, it's called Update. I think this is just basically an alternative to Flipboard. I don't know whether they're linked or they're two different things. This is the magazine thing that you get on the side. You used to have like on Flipboard on the other phones, but I've turned that off. It's not something that I use, but it's up to you whether you think you're going to use that. I mentioned before that obviously the camera itself. Let's have a look. So I mentioned before it's now a 12 megapixel camera. But the autofocus is so much more quicker. I'll take a few shots. As you can see, normally this kind of thing took like 2 seconds in previous devices, but there's absolutely no delay there, which is quite nice to see. And the pictures are fine. They're shot in a 4.3 ratio rather than 16.9. Some people might not like that, but it's something that doesn't bother me too much, to be honest. So I mentioned I've used this phone for a few days now, and I wanted to be very honest about the battery. I was expecting it to be amazing. It's not amazing, but it is fine. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm a heavy user, and let's say for argument's sake, I turned the phone on at 7:30 in the morning, and at one point I had the phone on for 3 hours straight. I was playing with it constantly with no break at all at 70% screen brightness. By the time I did that, the phone was about 75%, and that's not bad. I didn't charge it once. I finished my work day at 5 o'clock. By the time I got home at 5:30, my battery was at 50%. So I'll leave it to you to decide. For someone that's a heavy user, coming home and the battery's still at 50%, I think that's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And for someone that's a casual user, for someone that's just going to check notifications and use it as a phone, text, maybe check the occasional Facebook update, occasional Twitter, Instagram feed. By the time you have a whole working day done, you'll at least have 60%, at least 60 to 65%. And I think that's pretty good, really, in terms of battery. there hasn't really been anything I've been upset with the phone. You know, coming from a Note user, you know, we sacrificed having the removable back, so we didn't have premium materials. But I always had a case on my phone. It didn't bother me too much. But now that I've held something like this premium in my hand, it's so nice, and I can't imagine going back to anything different. I like the build quality. You know, I like the version of Marshmallow Android. I like the fact the SD card slot is back. The camera, low light shots, I'm sure they'll be good. Like I said, I haven't tested them yet. It's always on display. I don't think I'm going to use that. I might turn that off. One thing I did mention, actually I don't think I did actually, the home screen thing, you know, this should be continuous. I hope Samsung, you know, basically make an addition to sort this out. If not, I'll just put a third-party launcher. It's not a big issue. I haven't used Apex Launcher, and I want that continuous sliding going through. But there's nothing really that concerns me, nothing really that negative. Overall, I've been quite impressed with the phone, the build quality. I've purchased a couple of cases in the meantime, and I decided to go for Ringke, or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I tend to buy Spidge and Collect cases in the past, but I've also bought Ringke, and everyone seems to be going for the crystal view on this phone because it's a phone that you want to show off, but you don't want to compromise too much safety as well. So I went for the crystal one, and these things have got these sort of dust safety cap features, and it kind of just makes it a bit more secure. I'll show them. I'll show you what cases look like. You have to give it a good clean before you put it in. Obviously, with the black one, the crystal one does look quite good. If you've got a different colour, I would still stick with the crystal one. But as good as this looks, I actually prefer a smoky black finish on this one. I think just because I've got the black phone, it just looks a little bit better. What do you think? I think that's pretty nice. So it's a preference really, but if you are looking for a case, this one, I believe they're called the Ringke Fusion cases, and if you choose the smoky finish or the crystal, it's down to you really, depending on what colour you have. But overall, I have been happy with the phone. I apologise if I have missed out on any features. I've not used the phone for that long, and maybe I'll do some tests in the future. Like I said, minor things that I'm not really that happy with is the home screen changes. There's not much more to it than that really. I mean, I'm still waiting for the Samsung Pay to be released in the UK, and I'm keen to try that out. I know that you guys in the US are using that feature, but I don't know how long it's going to take before we get that. And at some point I do want to invest in one of those Galaxy watches, so I'm going to pair that up with this and see how that works. So that should be my next video. But in the meantime, thanks for taking your time to have a look at my review of the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. Feel free to leave some comments. Thank you.